Hey, Terry here, and welcome to Times Gone Tech. A couple days ago, I was at my local hardware store, home improvement center, and I'm going to tell you what I was there for. Okay, but no laughing. I'm not joking. I was looking for a cheap hoe. You see, the weeds in my garden and around the house have kind of getting out of hand, and I don't like the hoe that I have. So was looking for a new one, but I don't want to spend $40, $50 on a hoe. You know what I'm saying? I mean, who does? So I was looking for a cheap hoe. Well, I didn't find one. They had a section for one, but they were sold out. But what I did see was a section of tools put out by a company that I had never seen before. Now, these were landscaping and gardening tools, not hammers and things like, but like landscaping saws, shears, things like that. Company called Fiskars. Had never heard of them. But what I saw among all these tools was one of this cool little thing here. Check that out. Huh? Now, is that cool or what? This is the Fiskars Machete. Had never heard of Fiskars, didn't know much about it. Priced for $35. How good could it be, right? So I went home, got on the internet, I did some research, and as it turns out, Fiskars is actually one of, if not the oldest continually operating manufacturing facility in the world. They started making tools, landscaping and gardening tools back, I think, if I remember right, in the 1600s. Could be older than that. And I'm sure somebody out there, if they know, they're going to do a little fact checking and correct me if I'm wrong. But the point is, they've been making tools for gardeners and landscapers and such for a long time. So it kind of gives me the idea that they know what they're doing to stay in business that long. Jumped in the car, ran back to the store. Now there had been 5 of them on display in the store when I first saw them. So I got back to buy one, and guess what? This was the last one left. They'd sold 4 out of 5 just in the time it took me to drive home, do a little research, jump back in the car, and drive back to get one. I just got the last one. So apparently these are good. Um, but how good is it? Well, it retails for $35. Yeah, so, it's not like a $350 entry level sword or a $800 or $900, expert level sword. It is a machete. It's not a sword. It is a tool. But medieval history, especially, has shown us that quite often the most effective weapons on the battlefield were either the most efficient tools around the farm or had their roots in farm implements and farm tools. And machetes have been used very successfully in combat and warfare. The Boxer Rebellion of the Chinese, and even later on, they were used by the Koreans and in the Vietnam conflicts. They've been used all over Asia throughout history of swords, I guess, as both effective farm tools and weapons. So I'm going to have a little review of it today. So, and it comes with a sheath, obviously. Put this on there. Now, again, we're looking at a price tag here of $35. Yeah, it's got some good points. It's got some bad points. I like the scabbard. I do like the fact that it's not plastic. I don't like those big, heavy, clunky plastic things they're coming out with. It's riveted, ripstop. I'm going to say nylon, but some kind of artificial fabric. Just very basic, very simple, nice snap to hold it in place. Got a little belt loop here to hold it. Okay, so on to the machete. Now, the handle. Well, first, before I start looking at specifics, let's just look at it in general. First, And there's no real denying it. There is a badass factor when it comes to tools and implements like that, swords, weapons, man toys. Yeah, there is a cool factor, a badass factor, and this has definitely got the cool factor. Okay, I mean, check it out. That's kind of what caught my eye, and it might have been a marketing strategy on Fiskars' part to catch your eye on a rack of other tools. There were other machetes and other tools on this rack, and my eye immediately went to this one. The balance on it is pretty good, right about there. So it's just forward of the handle. The weight, I haven't weighed it yet, but a pound, 2 pounds, maybe. It's fairly light. It's got your classic machete shape, the nice, just a little bit of a curve to it. Kind of reminds me of a pirate's cutlass, only it's not curved enough and it's not pointy enough, but kind of reminds me of that. Okay, so looking at the handle, there's some things about this handle that at first I was a little puzzled about. I mean, this is obvious, little finger guard, which most machetes that sell for $12, $15 don't have. Again, this one was $35. Little hand guards, not bad. I'm not sure about what that is for. It serves any useful function. I'm also not sure how far into the handle the tang goes. This part of the handle is hollow. I can fit my finger up in it that far. So right to there, it's solid back up to there. And then from here back, it's hollow. You see that? Yeah. I have no idea why. It's got a hole for a lanyard, but why hollow? Unless it was a balance thing, unless they wanted the balance right about here. Because that's kind of like the same thing about the holes here in the front, which I'll talk more about in a little bit. The other thing that kind of caught my eye was that the handle is like twice as long as on a normal machete. Normal machete, you got just enough room for your one hand, and then all of this is like, gone. So why such a long handle? Well, and what's this bump up here for? Well, that kind of puzzled me at first for a little bit until I started playing around with it. And that's when I realized that I can put my hand up close to this finger guard here and put my thumb against that bump, and I can do like sharpening a steak or something. It's fine, fine work, fine cutting, fine chopping. And if I'm going into thicker brush or heavier wood, I can just back my hand down against the back hand grip, keeps my hand from slipping off the grip. And now I've got that extra length for really good hard chop. And if I really need to, the handle is long enough, I can do a really good two-handed blow with it if I really need to. Otherwise, I can get a good swipe this way, or I can chop, 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 chop as I need to. So there was some thought put into it. Hard plastic up front, rubber, softer rubber on the grip. So kind of very ergonomically designed. It is designed for a man's hand, large man. My hand is barely big enough to hold this. You can see it doesn't really, you see my hand doesn't really wrap completely around it. It's really designed for someone with a larger hand. And it might be that their surveys and studies showed that people who make a living working out in professional landscaping type occupations, maybe they just have larger hands because they're out in the field working with them more. It could be, I don't know. So anyway, moving on to the blade. $35. It does not tell, Fiskars does not tell us what kind of steel this blade is. It just says hardened steel. But I'm pretty sure it's case hardened mild steel for $35. You get what you pay for. But the blade itself is about 3/16 of an inch thick. And if you case harden a 1/16 of an inch thick on both sides, you got a nice hard skin on the outside and then a very thin, softer core on the inside. And it's stiff and it's got some flexibility. So yeah, it's got a little springiness to it. I'm not sure what this bevel on the spine is for. It's not sharpened. Again, unless it's just a weight thing, I don't know. But it has a single bevel on the edge here, followed by a secondary bevel to the sharp edge. And that could be filed or ground down to just a single bevel, making it a lot sharper. It comes sharp, but not really sharp. It's what I call serviceable sharp. It could use a little cleaning up. I haven't sharpened this one yet, but it cuts, but not as good as I think it could if I was to sharpen it up a little bit. The shape of the blade, just that little bit of curve, does give it some good cutting and chopping capability. Which brings me to these 5 holes here in the front. And the only thing I can configure these are for was, again, the balance factor, because it is a thick, heavy blade. So they wanted to lighten it up. So they took some weight off each end. They took a little weight off the back of the very back of the handle and took a little weight off the front. That kept the balance right about here. It's interesting. It's entirely too blunt to thrust with. I mean, you can thrust with it, okay? But, you know, you're not going to penetrate anything, but you could go up to the face, go up to the eyes, um, into the throat, neck. If you sharpen this tip up here especially, this makes a very good cutting edge for slashing. You get somebody in range and right across, right across the throat. Yeah. Yeah. So very good tool, very effective weapon. Oh, one more thing. It has what Fiskars calls low friction coating on the blade. Now, to me, this looks and feels, yeah, and even tastes like anodizing. Um, Anodizing is a very inexpensive way to help make steel, aluminum, or other metal more rust resistant. It's like a rust resistant coating. And that's kind of what I think this is. Fiskars won't tell us, but I'm pretty sure this is just anodized, case hardened mild steel, which is a little more than the kind of machetes you get at your Army surplus or your Walmart do. You know, they're just a piece of mild steel. They might put a little bit of a shine on it, might polish it up a little bit. Otherwise, done. So yeah, it's a little better construction than your typical machete. This is the kind of implement that if you want to get into like a sword or something, which this really doesn't qualify as a sword. It's kind of in between. It's in between a big knife and a short sword, right? But if you want to get into having some kind of a tool slash weapon like this, but you're on a really tight budget. I mean, you're on a budget kind of budget, right? Where $300 is just no. That's $35. And if you're looking for a tool that you can kind of abuse, throw in the back of your truck, throw in the back seat of your car, your trunk, throw it in a tool shed or the barn, get it out when you need it, sharpen it, throw it back up in the tool shed or the barn when you're done with it. But you want it to be there and you want it to be ready to use anytime you need it. Yeah, this is a good implement. This is a good tool. So handy tool to have on the property for clearing brush, for clearing out vines. You could probably take it camping and use it for cutting steaks and chopping firewood. You could baton with it. Yeah, you could use it in a fight, home defense. Again, you can thrust, although it's not a thrusting weapon, but you can thrust because you got a shield in one hand and you're thrusting with the other. You could push them back, and then you could slash with this sharp part here, this curved part, slash, or you could hack and chop with the rest of it. And you just so get back in. Great little device to have in the trunk of your car, behind the back seat. of the car or the truck, in your emergency kit, in your backpacking supplies, in a closet, in a corner by the front door, wherever you want to keep it. Fiskars. Let me turn around so you can see the brand name. Not to be confused with Whiskers. Fiskars. All kinds of really cool landscaping tools. Okay, so there's my review, and thanks for watching, and tune in for next time.